There are actually studies that show vegetarians have less heart disease than carnivores.
Absolutely, and that's not necessarily because of the fats. Initially, many years ago, people were told avoid fats like butter.
Saturated fats.
Yes, and they then introduced margarine, which in fact turned out to be the worst thing for the heart. So refined hydrogenated vegetable oils are now a leading cause of heart disease. So that they got that. Then they thought cholesterol is caused by fat,
the big
and
villain, yes.
so they banned fat from the diet, and they found that backfired too. So fat is not, if it's healthy fats, they have nothing to do with heart disease. In fact, coconut oil, which they banned in the early years and replaced with margarines, that turned out to be a great protector for heart disease. So it helps with heart disease. Olive oil is a great protector of heart disease. That's why in the Mediterranean diet, where they use a lot of olive oil, they have a very low incidence, or used to have until they started overeating protein as well, that they had a very, very, very low incidence of heart disease. And so the fats are really out of the equation, except the harmful fats, which can definitely cause heart problems. The protein factor, when you eat meat and you heat it, you create very harmful chemicals, particularly the grilled, when you have these outdoor, where they make they found that when you heat the meat and it drops, the oil or fat drops to the into the fire, and that creates gases that are then trapped in the meat. And they found that they are one of the leading causes of heart disease now. So they can damage blood vessels and cause cancers. So, and diabetes. So all of the three again.
Right?
And it creates an inflammatory response. Now, when you have like the protein coming into the body, typically the liver tries to break down as much protein as possible, so it doesn't enter the bloodstream, or enter the blood vessel walls. But many of the proteins that are left over in the blood, they will be dumped into the connective tissues surrounding the cells. And once they are saturated, that you are affecting the oxygenation of the cells, which can cause cancer, one thing. So it's the same causes that cause diabetes, cancer, heart disease, same causes. So they're not separate illnesses. In the early days of the 40s or 50s, they considered all three diseases the same disease.
They did?
Yeah, so we're
so
not
they just
separate.
manifest differently.
They started saying, well, let's make it a separate illness and we can treat it separately. Another illness, another illness. So originally they were the same illness because they have the same causes and they have the same things that cause them. So the blood vessel walls getting too thick, the membranes accumulate all that protein, and then the damage occurs in the blood vessel walls. So let's say a coronary artery, where the blood pressure is the strongest, will start stressing that thickened artery wall, that stiff wall. The blood pressure is starting to rise because the blood vessel no longer dilates properly. And then you have the wounds and lesions created, the breakages, the little damaged parts of the blood vessel. And then that can release a blood clot, which can enter the bloodstream, enter the heart or the brain, cause a stroke or a heart attack. Now, heart attacks are caused by blood clots that are released from the wounds and lesions. So in order to prevent that from happening, the body will use cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol, to start bandaging those wounds so that they don't release blood clots.
Okay.
And so the bandage is what we call arteriosclerosis. Again, it is very far-fetched, in my opinion, to call that a disease when it is a protective mechanism to prevent multiple heart attacks from occurring. So what we call disease is actually a survival mechanism to prevent heart attacks. Now, heart attacks occur not because people have an occluded blood vessel, where the blood vessel is like 80% occluded. They think that causes a heart attack, but it doesn't.
It doesn't.
No, the heart attacks are caused by the early patches, the initial patches, the soft patches, not the hard, crusty occlusions, the soft patches where the cholesterol has attached itself to the artery wall to prevent a blood clot from escaping and causing a heart attack. But if the blood pressure is high and you're, let's say, over-exercise, or you get stressed and you have a contraction of, you have a shortage of blood flowing in certain parts of the body, and in others you have too much, that's a fight or flight response, then you may suddenly have a heart attack because that patch of the cholesterol pieces coming loose, and the blood clot behind is escaping and causing a heart attack or a stroke. So this doesn't happen with the occlusion. The occlusion may make you feel develop shortage of breath, you may have angina, pain, but you don't develop a heart attack from that. The body will eventually create its own bypass operations. It will use the capillaries from one part of the artery and create several bypasses to the part behind the blockage, so that now you have an increased blood flow and you continue having a normal blood flow. And they first discovered that in Korean soldiers that had 100% occluded blood vessel, totally blocked.
All right.
They didn't die from heart attacks, they died from bullet wounds. And they had no sign of infarction, so they didn't die from heart attacks ever. So they made their bypasses. They found they had more blood after the occlusion than before because of their own bypasses. But
by their internal bypasses.
Yes, the body makes that. So again, that's not the main reason for heart attacks. That's why when they put stents into the arteries, or they have a balloon put in, or they have a bypass operation, it doesn't change the mortality rate from heart attacks whatsoever. It has never gone down. So the reason is because it doesn't change the thing with the little initial wounds and lesions that are patched up by the cholesterol. It doesn't change that because the main risk is the inflammation in the artery wall itself. That's why the C-reactive protein is a much better indicator for heart disease than cholesterol levels or any other measure. So when you have inflammation in the artery wall, that shows there's something in there the body is reacting to, and in most cases it's protein, in some cases it's trans fatty acids that you react to, or cigarette chemicals from from smoking, and damaged proteins, plasma proteins that get caught in those areas when you eat certain foods that are so acidic, like drink a Coke, you put yourself at risk for heart attacks. Or there is a study to show if you eat a steak at night in the evening, when the digestion is so low compared to at lunchtime, you have a much higher risk of dying from a heart attack the next morning.